situation, right? Like we're 23rd in points. We're not going to point our way in. Back up. Before that caution comes out, the 3's going to win. And we all know that. But racing's not over till it's over. But from a driver's perspective, when a silly caution comes out that takes away that win from you, you're already feeling like you're getting robbed, right? Now, nobody's robbing him, we get that, but you just feel like that fight or flight of like it's being taken from you, And so I could understand the desperation, right? The 3's entire season is riding on that last restart and those last 2 laps, and so I can put myself in those shoes real easily and be like, oh, I get it. I understand why and what happened. But I also think that we have to determine what we're going to be and how we're going to be as a sport. And are we going to be boys have at it and do anything you can to win a race and get your team into the playoffs? Or is there going to be a sporting conduct in the code that says, yeah, we want you to race hard and we want you to go for it, but there's a limit? And I think the line was crossed. And I think NASCAR responded correctly. But I have zero blame towards Austin going for it. He had to. It's a shot to get into the playoffs. I mean, it's a $3 million lap if he makes that stick and everything goes good. It's a big swing, and for his team and his partners. And so I don't sit here being like, oh, that was stupid, he is uncalled for. I go, I get it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? And it just didn't work out.
If NASCAR had not penalized Austin, would you have been willing to do that move, like at Darlington, to get in?
I think it changes the mindset when competitors see it and there's not anything, right? So would I thought pre-Richmond about that? No. I mean, there's been incidents in the past where you're like, oh, that was kind of close. But if it did slide all together, I think it does open it up for free game, at least for the short period of time, right? Like maybe 2 years from now, you'd kind of forget. But in the next 3 weeks, you'd be like, well, if anything goes, anything goes, So I do feel like they should have done something. I think it was right. But like I said, I mean, totally understand where Austin was coming from and why he did it and what he was trying to accomplish. And I think a lot of people would have tried the same thing.
Would you prefer to see it done day off?
Oh, for sure. But, man, that's a big call and a big decision and a lot of moving parts, and yeah, it's hard. It's very subjective. Like, I could have watched, I'm analytic. I analyze things a lot, analytical. And I could easily look at the 3 and be like, oh, he didn't try to hook Denny Hamlin. He was just downshifting, catching it, gassing it up, sees the car, race mode, all the stuff happens very easily. And it not be a whole planned out lot of intent. It's the heat of the moment trying to get to the line and beat the guy. So sometimes it's okay to have a little space to figure out what's what and look at data and look at video and look at all the things. And then, it's a big decision in our sport, right? I don't want to say there's drawing a line in the sand, but it's a big moment that people are going to talk about and remember in the future, and it will set some precedents on what's going to be allowed. So you don't want somebody to rush to that either way. So I think it went good. I didn't think that they would take the win away there because it's not something that they typically do. And but reviewing it and going, hey, that was probably too far, and adjusting accordingly, I think is fine.
Daytona's not the cutoff race this year, but
close to it.
Close to it,
Yeah.
But 5 of the last 7 Daytona winners have won to get into the playoff.
Yeah.
Do you think that's probably your best shot in terms of winning that race?
For sure. I think that, it's one that we feel like is a good shot for us, but it's a good shot for a lot of people too, right? I mean, if you just look at the field and you look at some of the guys that have to make it, it's a good race for Bubba. It's a good race for Ross. It's a good race for a lot of guys that are right on that line and flirting with it. and depending on what happens in the next few weeks, right? You throw Busher in that mix too. There's guys that could potentially win in this weekend, and then that changed that whole dynamic again, right? So, like we saw with the 3, right? 3-1, and then all of a sudden that cutoff looks a lot different. So, yeah, I think it's our best chance, but we've had fast cars at a lot of places, so I don't feel like it's our only chance.
Well, Michael,
Thanks, Michael.
Yep.
thank you. Yeah, Michael, at this time last year, you had a couple of wins, and then this year, obviously, you got a win to get in.
Yeah.
This is a 4-track.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
And
it's fun.
I bet that's a big thing that you circle on. I'm sure this race is circled for you to potentially have a top finish or win.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, there's a lot of pride that goes into this race from a manufacturer standpoint, and I know there's a lot of pride and energy that goes into this race from the Roush H Engine Shop and Doug Yates and his group too, and they've been working hard this season, and we've seen the Fords get definitely more competitive over the last month and a half, 2 months. Seeing the speed that Blaney and Keselowski had at Indy, and obviously with Busher winning here last year, there's a lot of confidence that we can get a Ford in victory lane. So, yeah, I feel like this is a good weekend for us.